welcome, everybody. Alright, for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Ethan Hobson, and I'm a Congress candidate for the U.S. District 5 of Michigan, 2022. Today we're going to go over a little bit more about who I am, campaign. Then we're going to get into a little bit of what's going on in our state with our governor. Go across to Portland for some information over there, and then we'll go across what's going on in the House with gun control. For anybody that would be so gracious and so kind to drop a follow, like, share, anything to that nature, or you can visit me at my website, which is down below in the description at www.hobsonforhouse.com. Any visits there pushes me up further in the algorithm for Google as well. It makes it easier for people to find me come election day on 2022. Alright, now let's get into Gretchen Whitmer and what's going on with her. If anybody hasn't heard or hasn't seen in the news lately, seems like she might be facing the same fate as Governor Cuomo over in New York. Possibly worse, actually, because as you'll hear here in a second, on the video clip, she actually incentivized nursing homes to take in COVID patients, offer them X amount of dollars, and of course, being the governor, what are these places to do? She issues executive orders, says that they're laws, says that we have to follow them, and that's why she's in the mess she's currently in. And me personally, with my wife-to-be being in healthcare, I know that a lot of these things are true. That they were forced in, that they didn't have no choice in the matter, that they were offered money, but other than that, they had no choice in the matter. The governor of our state told them that they were going in there, and that was the end of it. If they didn't like it, and that was too bad. And in my personal opinion, I know that sadly there's a lot of nursing homes that are around the state that have been shut down or have closed their doors due to lack of staffing, lack of funding, whatever the case may be. And no attempt was made by Governor Whitmer to reopen one of these establishments, to renovate one of these establishments, to do anything to separate live COVID patients from people who were not sick. And our most vulnerable people at that are elderly. Not giving their families any prior knowledge that they'd be rooming next to live COVID patients, putting them at the same risk as anybody else that's in our medical field on a day-to-day basis, going room to room, working from COVID patients to being in contact with other nurses that aren't working with COVID patients, that you unwillingly transmit the disease. You don't mean to do it. It's not your choice. But that's what happens when you put sick people with non-sick people. And they say it's about the well-being of keeping people safe, to wear masks, do this, do that, to social distance. And then you want to turn around and you want to room and board sick people with non-sick people, with incentive to these establishments that are, some of them already struggling, and you tell them that they have to do this pretty much anyway, and then to soften the blow a little bit of what they know is wrong already, you offer them money to do these things. You're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and the people of Michigan know it, and they see it, and that's just the start of your list. That is just the start of your list. You loosen up restrictions, quote unquote, a little bit. You let restaurants and bars and casinos go to 50% capacity with your orders that people are obviously done with. You can't do anything with it anymore. Nobody's going to listen to your orders no more. Nobody's going to do what you say anymore. because people are tired of it. People are tired of you acting like a tyrant. That's what the will of the people is for. And that's what most of my campaign is about, is the will of the people. For their voices to be heard, that you've ignored for far too long. Especially the families of these patients that you board COVID patients with, live COVID patients that you know have the virus. And you still board them with people that are the most vulnerable. But we'll go over to this first clip from our friends at Local 4 News, and they'll sum it up a little bit better.
It's the issue that won't go away.
Governor has faced tough criticism over her pandemic nursing home policy early on. Initially, COVID-positive patients were placed in the same facilities with COVID-negative patients. The governor ended that practice after the first 6 months of the pandemic.
And now there is growing scrutiny with the prospect of lawsuits and other legal action. Local 4's Rod Maloney joins us live tonight after speaking with the governor one-on-one today about this issue. Rod, what is she saying tonight?
Well, she's saying that she's proud of her entire COVID response, what her team did. She's also proud, she says, of her nursing home policy. Now, that policy differed from that of Andrew Cuomo in New York in that he required patients to be sent from the nursing homes from the hospitals to the nursing homes. The governor incentivized it by paying nursing homes more to take those COVID-positive patients.
Here's what we know. Our policies saved a lot of lives in our nursing homes.
And a lot of Michiganders died in nursing homes. The state of Michigan posts the long-term care death rates online. The most current count puts the number at 5,537, more than 35% of all of Michigan's COVID deaths. When New York Governor Andrew Cuomo came under fire for allegedly underreporting the numbers of seniors sent from nursing homes and died in hospitals, Local 4 filed a Freedom of Information request to ask about Michigan's numbers. It turns out there aren't any. Our request came back with a denial of data stating, quote, there are no records of the location of death collected, end quote. So we asked the governor today why that is.
So I'm proud of the work that we did. We can parse through different angles of statistics and compare ourselves to other states, but I think that it's sometimes can be a fool's errand because the way that we are congregating data varies state to state because there was never a national strategy, and it makes it hard to really compare apples to apples.
Answers like that aren't sitting well with Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lucido. Tomorrow, he's expected to announce an effort to prosecute the governor for her nursing home policy.
Well, I think it's really destructive that anyone would abuse the power of their offices to try to create a political issue where there's not one. And I'm not, sadly, not surprised that there's some of that conversation happening.
Now, we did get a clarification from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services today about my FOIA, saying that nursing home patients who were transferred to the hospital and then died would be counted as nursing home deaths if they have not been discharged from the facility. So we're still really unclear on where that count is and where those numbers might be. Back to you.
Rod, I'm wondering, did the governor cite any research to show her nursing home policy was a good one or anything to back it up?
Well, she did cite a couple of things. The University of Michigan study, which said that the state did reasonably well because it came in under the national average of nursing home deaths. And she also cited an AARP study that gave her some praise for what it was that she did.
Yeah. Okay. Rod, thanks.
All right. So, typical, let's dance around and avoid the actual question that we're being asked here. Let's not cite any numbers. Let's not cite any facts because there are none, because the numbers are quite to the contrary, that if she would not have taken the actions that she had, that at least 30% of the deaths that happened in our nursing homes during this virus would not have happened. And she has no answers for it. She wants to dance around the question. She wants to say things to try to disenfranchise people that might not understand exactly what she's talking about, to make herself look like she's the better person in the situation, instead of just owning up to what she did. Because she knows that if she did, she's going to face charges for it, and she should. She should. Because like I said before, when you knowingly place sick people that you know have the virus alive in their system, when you place them to be cared for in facilities that are taking care of the people who are most vulnerable to this, there's no argument for that. You have nothing to say for that. There's nothing. And you had numerous options, especially around here, around my area up here by Hale, Tawas. I know that there was plenty of places. We have a whole army base 3 towns over with numerous old apartments that are completely vacant. But yet you say, and you spend money and you incentivize these places with money to put these sick people with our most vulnerable, instead of putting your money towards resources like that or facilities like that. It makes absolutely no sense, and you need to be held accountable for it, Governor Whitmer. Plain and simple. And anybody who says anything to the contrary, any official that stands behind what you did, they're just as guilty as you are. But enough with Whitmer. And now we're going to move on to some across the country a ways. We're going to go back over to Portland, Oregon. And I know that people have heard over the course of the last year, after months and months and months of rioting and panic in the streets and fires and everything, but these are not riots. These are not riots. These are peaceful protests. These are people just peacefully protesting. They're not doing anything against the law. You know, well, one person was arrested, but other than that, it was just a peaceful protest. That's what we're told, except for a few brave news media outlets. But you know, so we're gonna take a look over here across the way at some of the things that are going on in Portland. Now, mind you, this is the federal courthouse. This is just outside front prior to them actually gaining access to the building. Now burning the American flag. But where's the condemnation? I'm not going to sit here and say that everything that happened a couple months ago on a certain day was exactly right. I would never say that, because bad things happened that day. But for people that have sat and said that the chaos on that day was nothing short of domestic terrorism, and that people should go to prison, and that people should be blacklisted from holding certain jobs and being able to do certain things and being able to fly certain places and being able to travel this and that place. Where is the condemnation? This stuff is still happening. It's been happening for over a year. We didn't hear it before. We heard peaceful protests before. We didn't hear the condemnation before, and we're not hearing it now either. Where is the accountability? But Antifa doesn't exist, right? Where is the accountability being held? You want the people, and they should be, the people that stormed, vandalized, terrorized, and everything on that day deserve to face charges. But so do these people. And you want to blast one all over the news, and you want to have people create violence against these people that may or may not have been there, or that may or may not support certain people, certain candidates. You want to condone and you want to support violence. Hey, what's going on, Chase? Glad you can make it. Appreciate it, man. You want to promote violence. You want to condemn violence. Which is it? Which is it? Because you can't have it both ways. If you're going to condemn one, you have to condemn them all. If you're going to promote one, you have to promote it all. You can't say that one is okay and one is not. You can't say that one is a peaceful protest and one is a riot. You don't get to do that. You don't get to live that double standard. You're either going to condemn violence in all its forms, or you're not. No matter which side it comes from. It doesn't matter. Violence is violence. Peaceful protest is one thing. Everybody has the right to do it. Everybody. Everybody has the right to say what they want. Everybody has the right to have free speech. Everybody has the right to do anything they want. But you don't have the right to have violence against other people because of a political belief. You don't have the right to riot and set fire in the streets. You don't have the right to vandalize other people's property, capital property. It doesn't matter. You have to condemn it from both sides. So where is it? Where is it from Joe Biden? Where is it from Nancy Pelosi? Where is it from my representative here in the 5th District, Dan Kildee? Where is the condemnation from these actions? We hear a whole impeachment trial. We hear a whole impeachment trial based off of something that wasn't nearly, in my opinion, wasn't nearly the amount of violence and the amount of destruction that we've had to watch in our cities and our streets across the country in the last year. It falls way short. And once again, like I said, I will never say that everything that happened that day was completely okay. Never. But I also won't stand and say that what's happening right now in Portland, Oregon, and still cities across our country, and what continues to happen and what has happened is okay either. Because you have to pick one side. You don't pick what's politically correct, you pick what's morally correct. And if you want to have the morality system to be able to have your freedom of speech and your right to protest, then you also have to uphold everybody else's rights. The people that have the right to pursue their happiness. The people that have the right to have their private property not destroyed. And then when it is destroyed, to not stand there and have their representatives say that it's okay, that it's a peaceful protest, and that stuff never happened. People don't want to see their cities burned. People don't want to see their police forces having to battle these things every day as their cities burn. People don't want to see the chaos anymore from either side. America's became too politicized. You shouldn't be putting politics above the rights of your citizens, no matter which side you stand on. This should not be the practice. It should not. And I don't know what it's going to take for our representatives up on Capitol Hill to start to understand this. That they play political games back and forth across the aisle. They argue who's guilty of what. They point fingers back and forth. They say what's going into where, who's doing what, where you're going to be, what you're going to do, your freedoms, your liberties. And meanwhile, no matter what situation it might be, in the end, who suffers for it? Do they suffer for it? No, they don't. It's you that suffers for it. But yeah, it's what's best for you. It's what's good for you. Don't worry. Don't you worry. Don't worry about what's, don't worry. We know what's best. It'll be okay. We're going to solve all your problems. You're not going to be hungry no more because we're going to give you food stamps every month. You're not going to be able to drive where you want to go, but you can drive some places. Here's your gas, because we're going green. Here's your gas. But you have to condemn these things in all forms, no matter what side of which argument you might sit on. I have my own opinions, and other people have theirs. That's not the question that's involved with this situation. It's about, what are we leaving behind? What are we leaving behind for future generations to use as an example? We look back right now and we see great things. Not everybody does, but we see great things. We see things like the Civil Rights Act, where everybody was treated as an equal under law, which a lot of countries don't have. We've seen the victory of 2 world wars through strength and through courage and through bravery and through knowing what Americans stood for. We've built railroads across this country. We've built multiple great cities and skyscrapers for those cities and automobiles, and we did it all together. And people have started to forget that. They've started to look at all these things that divide us, or they think divide us so much. And instead of looking at all the great things that we have done, can do together, all the division is just, it's too much. It's just absolutely too much, because when the future generations look back on us, what are they going to see? What do we want them to see? Do we want them to see that we were a country that almost tore itself apart? That it took us going to the brink of being what we always known to come back from it? Or do we want them to see it, that we learned from our mistakes in the past, and that we didn't dwell on our mistakes from the past, and then we move forward from our mistakes from the past? They're still there. You can't ever erase it. You can't ever erase it. You ever heard of Native American stories? You know, the ones that were passed down by voice over hundreds and hundreds of years? Yeah. So you can never erase it. It's never going to go away. You can take it out of textbooks, you can tear down statues, you can do whatever you want with this cancel culture, which we'll get to that in probably an episode or 2 here. But you can do whatever you want to it. But it's still going to be there. It's still our history. But it isn't what we live now. And it isn't what we have to live now. We've preached unity for years. We've been the country of unity for years upon years. Are we perfect? No. Are our laws perfect? No. Is our justice system perfect? No. Beyond a shadow of a doubt on that one. But the point of it is that we've always been the melting pot of the world. And we've always embraced each other's differences. We've always accepted that certain groups and certain people are better at things than other certain groups and certain people. But that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us special. If we were all the same, if we were all treated exactly the same, I'm not talking about by skin, I'm not talking about by gender, I'm talking if we were all treated exactly the same, if everybody was exactly nice to each other, and if everybody did exactly what everybody was supposed to do, our world would be very boring. Because great things come from conflict. Great things come from sadness and sorrows. Are they the best things in the world? No. But are they real? Yes. Can you save everybody from all of them? No. But do we try to nowadays? Yes. And it's not sustainable. We have to accept that we have differences and then we accept those differences of each other, but know that everything's not always going to be perfect. And the viewpoint of a few doesn't reflect the viewpoint of many. Is there racism? Yes. It exists, yes. But do you make everything about race if you want to eliminate racism? No. It's the last thing you want to do. So all that does is promote more racism. Do you want to see poor people so differentiated from the quote-unquote rich and wealthy of the world? No. But do you emphasize on it? Are you supposed to capitalize on it? No. You're supposed to work on, especially our representatives on Capitol Hill, you're supposed to work on the root of the problem. And that's the individual. And they can represent the will of the many, but it takes ourselves, like we've always been, to get over our differences and to be what we've always been, the melting pot, the country that celebrates each other's differences and accomplishments, the country that stands by each other no matter what, because we all have one common thing, because we all belong to this country. And even the people that want to sit there and riot in the streets and burn our flag have the same rights as us, unfortunately as it may be. But they do. But they're also not grateful that they have the right to be able to do those things that they do without being prosecuted for it, without being stoned to death like in other countries if you were to burn their flag. But they don't want to appreciate that. True Americans appreciate that. True Americans appreciate the freedoms and liberties that we have in our country. Because it's when it comes to the freedoms we have and the liberties that we have and the things we're allowed to do here, America is it. And that's being completely for real. Like I said, you try to do some of the things that was done in that video in another country, see what happens to you. See how fast you end up in prison for the rest of your life. But yeah, where are those people? One person was arrested in that situation. One person. We need to start appreciating what we have and what unites us instead of what divides us, so that we can stop situations like these, so that we can stop hating each other for the wrong reasons, so that we can start focusing on what unites us, because that's the only way we're going to do it, is by each other, by individual accountability in what we do and what we say. But we're going to go over a little bit on what's going on in the House right now with some gun control, and then that'll be it for this episode, you guys. So we're going to take a look, let's get an overview of what's going on in the House right now.
The bill is passed.
The U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday approved a pair of gun control bills as Democrats seized upon a shifting political landscape that they said improved chances for enacting new laws after years of failed attempts. The first measure passed the House 227 to 203 with support from 8 Republicans. It would close a long-standing loophole in gun laws by expanding background checks to those purchasing weapons over the internet, at gun shows, and through certain private transactions.
The bill is passed.
The second bill passed 219 to 210, with 2 Republicans supporting it. It would give authorities 10 business days for federal background checks to be completed before a gun sale can be licensed. Currently, it's 3 days. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said bipartisan support for the bills would lead the drumbeat of change across America.
If you're afraid to vote for gun violence prevention, because of your political survival. Understand this, the political survival of none of us is more important than the survival of our children.
Republicans opposing the bills argued that the legislation would not make streets safer and would infringe upon the constitutional right to bear arms. President Joe Biden is a supporter of expanded gun control measures. But the legislation will face a tougher battle in the U.S. Senate, where Democrats and Republicans are split 50-50. The bills would likely need 60 votes to pass. Many Democrats want to go even further than Thursday's measures by banning sales of some high-capacity military-style rifles that can fire ammunition rapidly.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say on this, one thing that I've never understood is, why are you trying to ban the weapon? Why? Why are you trying to ban the weapon? If a handgun shoots the same caliber, same trigger pull, same everything as a rifle, we'll say a 22 handgun and a 22 rifle, if it shoots the same round, the same caliber, and you have to pull the trigger every time, what is the difference there? If you have a 50 caliber Magnum and a 50 caliber rifle, what is the difference there? You still have to pull the trigger every single time. Every single time. We're gonna pull this up for an example here. Okay. So Joe Biden was mentioned in that video with his ban on quote unquote assault weapons. So here we have, which Joe Biden encourages you to go buy a shotgun. So here we have the new Mossberg with an extended 10-round clip. Now, I love my guns just as much as any American, and anything I ever say will never be anything to the contrary. That's why I absolutely think that this gun is beautiful, and I think that it would be a fantastic thing in home defense. It's a 10-round mag. Joe Biden encourages you to go get a shotgun. So now my question is, what is the difference in damage and the rate of fire and the amount of damage that a weapon like this could do in comparison to a rifle that they deem an assault weapon, if it was in a worst case scenario, such as a mass shooting of any sort that they reference over and over and over? What would be the difference in these guns? And they're never going to have an answer for it. The only reason that they want certain guns banned and certain ammunitions banned is because they do not want you to be armed and ready if it ever came for the situation to arise. And that is just being completely frank. Because that is what our Second Amendment was written for. Is for the people to keep and bear arms. Because our founding fathers knew. They knew that they had just freed themselves from a government that had tried to take their weapons from them. They had tried to stop their fight from independence. And they knew that it was important. They knew that it was important for us to have what we needed to protect ourselves. That's why the top of our most precious document says, "We the people." It doesn't say we the government. It doesn't say we the Congress. It doesn't say anything except we the people. And that's what makes our government and our structure of our government one of the greatest things in the world. Because we have the power of the people that decide who represents us. And everybody needs to remember that come this primary. Everybody needs to remember that come this next election. That's one thing that I will never move on, is your right to have your weapons. That is one thing that I will never compromise on. Ever. I will never compromise on your right to have free speech, no matter if I may like it or not. I will never compromise on your right to keep and bear arms, and I will never compromise on your right to travel and do as you please. There's certain things that are supposed to be protected in our country, because if they're not, it's like Ronald Reagan said, there's nowhere else to go. We set the stage here in America. We set the stage of true freedom. And more we're losing sight of that. And more people are being elected that don't have our best interest in mind. Democrat or Republican. Doesn't matter. People need to wake up and realize that it's nothing but a game. Back and forth on both sides. Do your research. Know who's really there for you. Know who really fights for what America stands for. I intend on being one of those people, because I actually believe wholeheartedly that our founding fathers were some of the most brilliant men that we've ever seen. That's why their greatest accomplishment is still here. And people are trying to take that from us. People are trying to take that our rights from us. People are trying to take our freedoms from us. People are trying to take our liberties and our values from us. And we can't let it stand anymore. It's time for us to stand up and tell them that they're supposed to represent us, that we put them there to be our voice. Not for them to line their pockets, not for them to sit there and play political games because they're on this party and this committee and this, that, and therefore. That's not their job. Their job is to sit there and represent us. And if they're not going to do that, then they need to leave their seat. And they need to start hearing it more. Write your congressmen, call them, write your senators, fill their voicemail, fill their mailbox. Do it. If anything, the least you can say that you tried to have your voice heard. And then when they don't want to hear it, when they still want to play political games, that's when you primary them. That's when you don't re-elect them to their seat, no matter how crooked we think this system might be. But now, we're going to sum this up, and we're going to go over to somebody who also doesn't move on your right, on your Second Amendment right especially, and that's Madison Cawthorn.
Mr. Speaker, if we lose the Second Amendment, then the First will fall. I want to remind my colleagues of a simple fact that is far too often swept under the rug by the left. Americans have a right to obtain a firearm for lawful purposes. I'll say it again louder for those on the left sleeping in the back. Americans have a right to obtain firearms. This is my right, and Mr. Speaker, this is your right. But let me be clear to everyone in this chamber. You will not take this right away from us. I know it's easy to be sucked into the DC bubble, but outside of here, in real America, when we say come and take it, we damn well mean it. This bill would unconstitutionally place the burden of proof for firearm purchases and transfers on American citizens instead of placing the burden firmly where it belongs, on the shoulders of the government. But let us be clear. The left is not here today to debate this bill, nor are they here to legislate in the best interest of the American people. They are here to shove it down our throats. My colleagues and I on the right have been called here to defend one of our most sacred rights. Because you, Mr. Speaker, think that the Constitution is just another piece of paper to tear down the middle of and toss aside. I speak for millions of Americans. I specifically speak for 700,000 plus Americans in my district. When I say that if you think this bastardization of the Constitution will be met with silence, then you know nothing of the America I know. You want my guns. I know it. We all know it. Well, Mr. Speaker, you could come and take them. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York.
Exactly. You want them, come take them. It can't be put no more simply than that. You were supposed to adhere to that document. You were supposed to adhere to the law of the land.
And you are never, unless in a morally corrupt situation, we have amendments that are proven fact of that. But except in those situations, you are supposed to adhere to that document no matter what. That is another part of your job. You swear an oath to that document. That document is more precious than that position you hold. And it's a complete atrocity for anybody to sit there and think that they're going to change it. You want to talk about any form of deaths in America? Let's talk about tobacco deaths that's completely endorsed. Mostly by liberals. But let's talk about alcohol that's completely endorsed. Both of them taxed, revenued. A lot of us pay for them every day. And now they are trying to establish the same system, if not worse, for our guns. National registry. Who has what? Where did they buy it? Where did they get it? Who did they get it from? And criminals don't care about that. They're going to go buy a gun out of somebody's trunk down the road in that type of situation. They're not going to care about breaking the laws. They're not going to care about registering. They're not going to care about having it tracked with serial numbers. They're going to be gone anyway. They're not going to care about any of that. It's not up for a debate. It's not anywhere close to being up for a debate. You want them, come take them. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is actively, right along with Joe Biden, trying to take your weapons from you. Make no mistake about it. And there's many members in the House and many members in the Senate that are right along with them as well. And they need to be held accountable. I hope that this reaches further than Michigan. Because people need to know that they're supposed to represent you. And if they're not representing you, it's time for them to leave. It's time for them to exit their seat and move over for somebody who's going to represent you. Dan Kildee would be a prime example of that. He also voted in favor of these new gun reforms. He chose to go along right with his party and do exactly as they were doing and vote to let these pass. He's a prime example of what I'm talking about. He has a whole district that he's supposed to represent, and a good chunk of it, anywhere north of Saginaw, he's not doing his job. And I don't even really think he's doing his job in the city myself, but when it comes to gun reform, or what they want to call gun reform, gun confiscation, national registries, he's right along with them. And he has to be held accountable. And to my knowledge, anybody other than me has been trying to hold him to that status. I encourage anybody and everybody to be involved with government if it's their choosing. It's not for everybody. It's not everybody's job to be politically involved. But it is everybody's job to be informed of what's going on. And that's part of what I try to do here. That's part of my goal with this podcast. So every Sunday I want to sit down and give people something that they can relax on. Well, for lack of a better term. But for them to stay informed. For them to not have the push of left and right and back and forth and feeling like they're trapped in the middle of something chaotic. It's up to you to make your decisions. Your viewpoints, your standing. But you should also know the facts. You should also know what's truly going on with things. It's where you get triggered people from. People that don't know facts. That want to think they know facts. Be an informed person. Be a big brain person. Because we all need each other with this, like I said before. They want to try to take our rights away. They want to try to take our freedoms away. Things that have been guaranteed to us for over 200 years. And they're not going to change now. They're not ever going to change. And they need to stop thinking that it's going to. And it's up to us to tell them that. But I think that'll be it, you guys. I appreciate everybody stopping in. I appreciate all the support. There'll be another episode next Sunday where I will have my special guest, William Moore, who is the state of Michigan chairman for the U.S. Taxpayers Party, Constitution Party affiliate. But until then, you guys stay informed, stay frosty. I love y'all. Have a good day.